this is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Some very, very interesting news. Gennady Golovkin, at least according to reports, has just parted ways with longtime promoter Tom Loeffler. This news caught me off guard. I didn't expect this. I didn't see it coming. It's funny because after Gennady Golovkin lost to Canelo Alvarez, there was talks and speculation that maybe Golovkin would leave longtime trainer Abel Sanchez. Because while you had so many Gennady Golovkin fans saying that Golovkin was robbed, you had Abel Sanchez saying that he didn't think Golovkin won the fight. He said he didn't think either guy won the fight, so he had the fight a draw. But then he said something that was really shocking. He said, let's not take away credit from Canelo Alvarez's win. Then he continued by saying, I'm just happy that there's another Mexican champion for Mexican Independence Day. Now, when it comes to Abel Sanchez said, let's not take away credit from Canelo Alvarez's win, the only reason you would say something like that is if deep down you believe Canelo Alvarez won the fight. But with him saying all that I just quoted, this is the reason why there was speculation that maybe Golovkin would leave longtime trainer Abel Sanchez, but instead, he clipped Tom Loeffler. It was interesting because Tom Loeffler, he was saying to the public, to the fans, that Golovkin would decide where he's going to go by the end of the year. And when I say where he's going to go, I'm referring to the network he's going to go since HBO went out of business, basically. If this news is true, which once again it's been reported by Dan Raphael from ESPN, if this news is true, this news reminds me of the Manny Pacquiao situation. Soon as the wheels started to come off with Manny Pacquiao, he started to leave Freddie Roach, even though he's back working with Freddie. He ended up leaving Bob Arum. Now he's with PBC. So the whole situation is very analogous to Manny Pacquiao's situation. We've never seen Gennady Golovkin so indecisive when it comes to what he's going to do next since he lost to Canelo in this rematch. I mean, there's all types of speculation that surrounds this news. Because I remember when Bob Arum kept trying to push Manny Pacquiao to fight Terrence Crawford, Manny Pacquiao eventually just left Bob Arum. So I wonder, and this is just pure speculation on my part, but I just wonder if Tom Loeffler gave Gennady Golovkin some options on opponents, and maybe Golovkin did not like the options that he had. I remember Eddie Hearn, he said a couple weeks back that he was reaching out to Team Golovkin because he wanted to match Golovkin against Caleb Smith. And then you had the WBC that had ordered Gennady Golovkin to fight Charlo to get a third fight with Canelo Alvarez. Gennady Golovkin was trying to do everything he possibly could do to avoid Jermall Charlo, and now Jermall Charlo is really the only viable opponent that is available for Gennady Golovkin and would do really big numbers. Remember, Charlo brothers, they just did 2.5 million views on TV. Matter of fact, it was the second most watched fight on TV in the United States behind Terrence Crawford. So if the Charlo brothers can do those type of numbers where they're pretty much promoting the fight alone because they weren't going up against big name opponents, if the Charlo brothers can generate those type of numbers, then you know Golovkin versus Charlo would be a huge hit when it comes to TV views. And let me just respond to some of the decavs that tried to discredit Charlo's numbers by saying, oh, come on, that fight was on free TV. Of course they did good numbers. Okay, guys, well, if that's the case, Leo Santa Cruz, he's about to fight on free TV as well, on the same network that the Charlo brothers fought. Let's see if he does the same numbers that the Charlo brothers did. Let's just see how the logic of a decaf plays out. But once again, this is really, really interesting news. Gennady Golovkin leaving Tom Loeffler. It just makes you wonder what type of conversations they had behind closed doors. I'm sure there were some interesting things said. Before Tom Loeffler was canned by Gennady Golovkin, Tom Loeffler, he had said that they're looking at ESPN and they're looking at DAZN, but they didn't mention PBC and Al Heyman at all. That's really no surprise to me. But Golovkin is trapped right now. There's really nowhere for Golovkin to go. Golovkin's trainer, Abel Sanchez, he said that Golovkin has at least another 2 to 3 years left in his career. It'll be impossible for Golovkin to fight 2 to 3 years and avoid all of the top middleweights in the division, because it ain't that many Vanes Monterosians in the 160-pound division for him to fight for the next 3 years. I think Gennady Golovkin, he understands the walls are closing in right now. He understands if he goes with DAZN, they're going to push for a Golovkin-Danny Jacobs rematch. If he goes with ESPN, maybe Bob Arum will push for a Gilberto Ramirez fight. I mean, there's really not too many opponents if he goes with ESPN. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who Gennady Golovkin goes with. If he really had confidence that he was the best middleweight in the world, he could fight all of these guys no matter who they represent, no matter what network they're with. And it would make a lot of sense for Gennady Golovkin to do that, once again, only if he had the confidence to fight these guys. Because once again, Golovkin versus Demetrius Andrade, versus Jacobs in a rematch, versus Jamal Charlo, versus Canelo in a third match. All of those fights would be huge. All of those fights would be huge. So Gennady Golovkin right now is in a bit of a conundrum, and it's really interesting. It's going to really be interesting to see who he decides to fight next. Since fans said that Jamal Charlo was exposed against Matt Karabov and he really was never that good, he was overhyped, etc., 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 you would think that since the WBC ordered Jamal Charlo, or at least ordered Golovkin to fight against Jamal Charlo, you would think he would take that fight if he's been exposed and everything, right? But Golovkin knows, just like I know, that the fans that say that, these are just emotionally attached fans that are praying that Golovkin and Canelo never have to fight Jamal Charlo. Because for some crazy reason, the majority of those fans that celebrated Jamal Charlo not looking great against Matt Karabov, they felt relieved thinking that now maybe this means Canelo no longer has to fight him. Golovkin no longer has to fight him. And they were saying that in the comment section. They were saying, nah, now he doesn't deserve to fight against Canelo or Golovkin. Which proves deep down that they don't feel that Golovkin was exposed. They don't feel that Golovkin is not that good and he's just overhyped, etc., etc. Because if they felt that way, they would be pushing for Golovkin or Canelo to fight Jamal Charlo next. So once again, I keep hearing these fans say Golovkin would destroy Charlo, Canelo would destroy Charlo. Well, if that's the case, I shouldn't be the one pushing for the fight. You guys should be the ones pushing for the fight if you truly have that type of confidence. Instead of you guys posting comments saying, no, I don't want to see that fight. They don't deserve to fight. Charlo doesn't deserve to fight Canelo or Gennady Golovkin. Charlo needs to give Matt Karabov a rematch. It's just deflection, distraction after distraction. While Golovkin and Canelo get to fight whoever they want to fight, they want to keep these fighters on a coincidental list away from them. But it's getting to the point to where these fans, they can no longer make excuses. At least they can't make excuses that make any sense. Because if you say Charlo doesn't deserve to fight against Canelo or Gennady Golovkin, then that means James Kirkland, that means Amir Khan, that means Rocky Fielding, that means Liam Smith. Tons of fighters that Canelo Alvarez fought didn't deserve to fight him. So why didn't you complain about those guys fighting him? Because you knew that Canelo had 100% chance of winning those fights. But if Canelo doesn't have 100 or 80% chance of winning, you guys don't want to see it. and you certainly don't want to see it if there's a fighter on the coincidental list that has a chance of beating Canelo Alvarez. And like I said, I have the comments in my comment section to prove everything that I'm saying to you guys. How is it possible that when you found out Canelo was fighting against Rocky Fielding, none of you fans said, oh, that guy is a bum. That guy is a bum. He got knocked out in the first round by Caleb Smith. How does he deserve to fight against Canelo? He doesn't deserve to fight against Canelo. They didn't say that when it came to Rocky Fielding because they knew Canelo was going to win. But how is it possible? So you don't call Rocky Fielding a bum, who had been knocked out in the first round before, but you call Charlo a bum. We know what time it is at the end of the day. These fans ain't fooling no one. And the walls are closing in. I keep telling you guys, it doesn't really matter who wins these fights against Canelo, Charlo, Danny Jacobs. At the end of the day, we have to see these fights because the best have to fight the best. We want to know who the best is at the end of the day. In my last video, I talked about Gennady Golovkin, him possibly fighting against Jermall Charlo next, and how I wanted to see that fight. And one of the fans, he said, you just want to see Golovkin lose, don't you? This is so funny to me. One minute these fans, they say that Jermall Charlo, he's overhyped. He was exposed. He just really isn't that good. Why don't you guys just admit he was never that good? Now all of a sudden, if we want to see the fight, you're saying you just want to see Golovkin lose. Wait a minute. But I thought Jermall Charlo was a bum and he was exposed. If Charlo is really not that good and I want to see him fight against Canelo, hell, doesn't that mean I want to see Charlo lose? I want Charlo to lose if we're using your logic, right? Because once again, Charlo is going to get destroyed by Canelo. Charlo is going to get destroyed by Gennady Golovkin. So if I want to see Charlo against Golovkin or Canelo, I must want Charlo to lose. You see how these fans make no sense trying to defend their favorite fighters? They make no sense at all. They fail miserably. Another fan, he said, oh, come on, Dante. I know you just love the brothers, etc., etc. He was saying that because once again, I said I want to see Canelo versus Charlo, right? Or Canelo versus Gennady Golovkin. Once again, if you believe that Canelo and Golovkin will destroy Charlo, then hell, that must mean I'm going against the brothers. Because Charlo doesn't really have that much of a chance according to you guys. So I'm basically setting up Charlo for failure. If Charlo is this overhyped, exposed fighter that's not that good, right? That's like me seeing some food and I know that the food has been poisoned and I tell you to eat it. Then obviously I'm setting you up. I'm not your biggest fan if I'm setting you up for failure. So when some fan says, oh, you just like the brothers if you want Charlo to fight against Golovkin, that fan doesn't even realize he's implying that Charlo has a good chance of beating a Golovkin or a Canelo if you say something like that. So let me get this straight. If we want to see Golovkin versus Charlo, and you want to see Golovkin versus Vanes Martirosyan, and you don't want to see Golovkin versus Charlo, what is that telling us about you? That's telling us a whole lot about you. And I'll just leave it at that. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. We'll see what Golovkin does from this point on. I'll keep you guys posted. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.